Welcome to the Daily Review. This is Razak, Senior Trading Strategist here at CMTrading. And today is November 18, 2024, and today is Monday morning. So looking at the highlights of the day, the U.S. markets take a dive and sell off. But first, no major economic events scheduled for today. So looking at the market, starting out with the Forex symbols, the Canadian dollar trades to new lows versus the US dollar. And looking at the indices, both the Dow Jones and the NASDAQ had that sell-off. Looking at commodities, gold gets a bounce while oil remains on supportish level. Now looking at the stocks, it's the tech stocks that sold off. However, bank stocks remain strong even though there was a general market sell-off. And lastly, looking at cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin remains strong above 90K. So let's take a look at the markets and see what we can expect from today's trading. So we're going to start off with the Canadian dollar, and we're looking at a monthly chart, an historic monthly chart. Now, this is really super important. Number one, we had a significant resistance level, a 138.42-ish level. We've reached that, as you can clearly see, right? Now, we are heading into congestion where we haven't seen since 2019, and before that, 2014. And before that, since 2002. So if we continue going in this kind of direction with this type of propulsion, we could move back to this 160-ish level versus the Canadian dollar. And that would make the Canadian dollar super weak versus the US dollar. Now looking at the Japanese yen versus the dollar, a little bit stronger here. Okay, did get a little bit stronger versus the US dollar, so it's not across the board. So it is something the Canadian dollar is grappling with. So just go back to the Canadian dollar. You can see it on a 4-hour chart. Let's zoom out here so it's a little bit clearer. Okay, but one second. Let's take this into a daily chart. There we go. And move the sign so we can see this a little bit clearer. Yes, that is where we're at. Now, all intents and purposes, we could hit 145, 150, 160 almost. But it's got to keep on with this momentum. And this is a huge spike with increased volume. So keep that in mind. Now, jumping into commodities. Let's take a look at gold finally bouncing, and we're using that 30-day moving average as resistance-ish area. And it does have to break above it for it to give us some sort of indication that it's going to move above it, so keep that in mind. Crude oil just hanging out on supportish levels, so nothing really big going there. Now jumping into the U.S. markets, there we get the sell-off. I mean, this is after hitting all-time record highs for the Dow Jones and all-time record highs for the NASDAQ. However, the NASDAQ did sell out a little bit more aggressively than the Dow Jones. I'm looking at the individual stocks. Microsoft sold off, still trading in a range. Tesla also got a little bit of a sell-off, but then a bounce as well. And as we look at Amazon, that one did sell off a little bit more aggressively. So it's a little bit of stronger stocks, weaker stocks, and a combination of those in between. So that's where we're at right now. Let's see if there's going to be some follow through, because it might be a rotation where we initially have, Microsoft selling off and Amazon selling off, and then we have Facebook selling off, right? So these type of things happen in the markets. There are rotations, so keep in mind looking at Meta. And speaking of Facebook, we did sell off quite aggressively there as well. So that's where we're at right now. Now, I do want to make this point that if we look at Bank of America, very strong here. Okay, if we look at JP Morgan, very strong here. So it's not systemic. It's not like the markets are selling off across the board. So there's some areas and pockets of strengths as well. And that's going to surely affect today's trading. So we're going to take that into consideration. Now, lastly, looking at Bitcoin remaining strong at 91K and not giving up any of its gains. I mean, the market likes, Bitcoin at least likes Trump as a president. And it might be an alternative to gold, seeing how we're not in an inflationary situation as much as anymore, but we are in a interesting time. Okay, I mean, this transition between Biden's government and Trump's government, it's going to be quite interesting how that's all going to happen. We still have a month and a half for that to happen, so keep that in mind. Now, I do expect today's markets to be a little bit lighter than regular, so nothing really jumping out for today's trading. So keep that in mind. Just trade light and trade responsible. This is Razak. I want to wish you guys a great trading day. Thank you.